There is a massive difference between boiling ground meat and water with a store-bought seasoning packet and actually building a taco filling from scratch. When you control the exact ratio of spices hitting the hot oil, you end up with a meal that is richer, thicker, and deeply flavored. To get there, you only need a few foundational ingredients. Pick up an 80-20 blend of ground beef, fresh yellow onions, fresh garlic, tomato paste, and some beef broth. For your hardware, you need a pan that can hold its temperature. A large, heavy-bottomed or cast-iron skillet is ideal here because it maximizes the surface heat necessary to properly brown the meat. By abandoning pre-packaged shortcuts and instead applying precise heat directly to raw aromatics, we elevate a standard weeknight dinner into a highly satisfying, deliberate culinary experience. This chart shows the breakdown of our spice blend: a base of chili powder, supported by cumin, smoked paprika, oregano, and cayenne. Because these are dry staples, you can multiply these ratios, keeping a bulk batch in an airtight container for 6 months. To begin the actual cooking process, heat a little oil in your skillet and sweat your diced yellow onions until they turn soft and translucent. Next, stir in your minced garlic. Expose the garlic to direct heat for about a minute to soften it. Any longer and it will burn, leaving a bitter taste throughout the dish. Now we reach the critical step: blooming. Drop your dry spice blend directly into that hot oil and onion mixture. Watch the pan closely here. Over the next minute or two, the spices will darken slightly, and you will notice a highly fragrant, roasted, nutty aroma filling the kitchen. This heat forces the dry spices to release their trapped essential oils. If you skip this step and just sprinkle raw powder over wet meat later, your filling will taste flat and dusty. Blooming builds the savory foundation of the entire taco. For the meat, it is highly recommended to use an 80-20 ground beef. Leaner cuts simply lack the fat content required to properly fry the beef, and fat is what carries those bloomed spices across your palate. Drop your ground beef directly into the hot skillet. Let it sit undisturbed so it can rapidly sear and form a crust against the iron. Once that initial brown crust has developed, take a wooden spoon and break the meat apart into uniform crumbles. A common mistake here is overcrowding the pan or stirring constantly. Both actions drop the temperature of the skillet, causing the meat to release its moisture and boil in its own juices instead of frying. When the beef is fully browned, we transition into building the sauce. Stir in a few tablespoons of tomato paste, letting it coat the beef to deepen the umami profile. Next, pour in your beef broth. Deglaze the pan by scraping up any dark browned bits so they dissolve straight into the sauce. Bring the pan to a gentle simmer. Over the next 5 to 10 minutes, reduce the liquid until the sauce becomes glossy and clings thickly to the meat without pooling. By searing the meat to develop a crust first, and then properly reducing the broth, we physically transform loose, dry ground beef into a rich, cohesive, restaurant-quality filling. The perfect filling is useless if your taco shell breaks apart in your hands. The main cause of structural failure during assembly is using cold, brittle corn tortillas straight out of the package. To solve this, you have to restore their flexibility. Either warm them briefly in a hot, dry skillet, or wrap them in a damp paper towel and steam them until they are soft and pliable. Spoon the steaming hot beef into your warmed shells and immediately apply your shredded cheese. The residual heat will melt it perfectly in seconds. Finish building the taco by layering your textures and acid. Add crisp, shredded lettuce, bright pico de gallo, and a dollop of sour cream to cut through the richness of the beef. Notice the contrast on the final plate. You have bright, fresh toppings sitting directly against the warm, melted textures and the deeply seasoned beef. From a logistical standpoint, this meat is also highly efficient. Any leftover filling can be packed into an airtight container, frozen, and successfully reheated for up to 3 months. By treating basic ingredients with technical precision, blooming your spices to unlock their oils, executing a proper sear, and carefully reducing your sauce, you end up with a vastly superior taco that easily outclasses any pre-packaged kit.